I'd say for your listeners then 9th, 10th, 11th.
Okay.
They're kind of cool, just outside of central Paris, cheaper, more likely to find loads of bars.
Yeah.
So if you compare the 7th, where I live right now,
Yes.
the full story is I was getting obsessed with this ancient archway that's 2 floors down under a post office that used to let this river run into Paris through the old wall 800 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, so it wasn't a culture shock about France, like, you know, it wasn't about the language or the croissants, or not so much about that. The big shock for me was the change from coming from sort of new Europe to old Europe.
Oh, wow.
A fun one that I like to show people is there's on the doorways of Paris, these big old doors, huge, they used to be big enough to let the horse and carriage through in the old days, 400 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
On these big doors of Paris, if you look carefully, and you'll see them, James, now that I've mentioned it too,
Yeah.
they have...
Welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast with me, James Hammond, where every Monday I'll be joined by guests to talk about their travel stories, travel tips, backpacking advice, and so much more. Right now, I'm taking the podcast on the road travelling with me, so tune in every week for short form episodes detailing all my travels alongside my Monday guest episode. Are you a backpacker, traveller, gap year student, or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you. This is a casual, informative podcast designed for you to inspire you to travel. There'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Welcome to the show. Let's get into the episode.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm joined in Paris by the host of the Earful Tower podcast, Oliver G. Today we're going to discuss Paris, a bit of France as a whole, Oliver's background, and of course Oliver's podcast. Super excited about this as we're in person doing the interview. Oliver, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, James. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So please tell listeners, right now in Paris, where are we?
We are sitting in the window of the cafe called Le Peloton, which we're in the Marais. We're right near the Seine. In fact, I can almost see the Seine over your shoulder.
Oh wow!
And Le Peloton, it's a cafe that's got a kind of cycling background. So Le Peloton is a French. I think it's an English word as well. But
Yeah,
it's like
I know it. Yeah.
It's like the group of cyclists.
Yeah, cyclists. And
Yeah. So and we're in the 4th arrondissement, the 4th neighborhood of 20, and pretty central in the city.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you later on about the districts and about what they entail. But first of all, a bit of backstory. You're Australian.
Correct.
So where in Australia are you from?
I'm really from all over. Like, I was born in Melbourne, grew up on the East Coast, and then sort of, I don't know what formative years are, but I feel like my formative years were on the West Coast. So when people say where are you from, I don't even have an answer. But like really all over the place.
Okay.
I've lived longer in Paris than I lived in any city in Australia. So
Got it.
so confused about where I'm from, but Australia is the one thing that's for sure.
Okay, and Paris, why here?
I got a job. I was working in Stockholm, Sweden as a journalist, and then an opportunity came up in the Paris office, and I applied for the job and I got it. So I moved here 8 years ago to work as a journalist, and haven't left since. Well, I left on holidays and stuff. It's not a prison, but I've been here for 8 years.
Wow, and did you speak French before that?
I thought I did. I really thought I did. In fact, I even said in the job interview that I spoke French, and I was like, it might be rusty, but I'll pick it up. And then when I got here, I was like, oh no, I don't speak French at all. So I learned it at school. In Australia, you learn it at school, but that's not really saying much. And then I did it a bit at university, but still, there's nothing that compares to in Paris or in France actually speaking to people. So I spoke terribly. I'd say I was 1 out of 10 when I got here at best.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, I think the best way to learn is in the place. And in Canada, you speak French Canadian.
Sure.
Not looked kindly upon by the French, I don't think.
No, I think, I don't know. I know that, but where, are you in Vancouver or?
Yes.
So they speak the French there as well? Is it? Okay.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, you probably need Mandarin.
Really?
Yeah, half the population is Asian orientation, so
Okay.
it is taught in schools, but maybe not as prevalent as maybe like something in Montreal,
Wow.
Ontario.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I know that I find it hard to understand that Quebecois, like that Canadian French, but I don't know how French people look on it or whether they can converse easily, but I know it's very different.
Yeah, someone described it as like excuse the language here, a bastardized type of French.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that means, but it sounds more simplified maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. That could be a whole extra episode.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe for me, maybe not for you. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in Paris, come here from Australia. I want to just quickly talk about maybe when you first arrived. Was there culture shock? Was there a bit of a adaptation period of time?
Sure, there was a bit. It was kind of interesting because I'd come via Stockholm, and Stockholm is like light years ahead of the average for everything.
Yes, of course,
right.
yeah.
It's like futuristic almost.
Yeah.
I mean, not as futuristic as maybe I don't know Singapore or something like that, but but for Europe especially, right? And then so coming to Paris from there was really, it felt like going back in time to come to this city.
Oh wow, okay.
Because just little things, there's little things like that you maybe wouldn't, if you lived here, you wouldn't even think about it. Like at the time, I remember when I got to the Charles de Gaulle airport to move here with my suitcases and everything, that there were phone booths, telephone booths where you put the coin in, and like those things are so long gone. I don't know if they're
for criminals, aren't they? It's for criminals like
maybe.
I don't know. Maybe
I was in Australia recently, and they use them. They've turned them into free telephones now, so you can call any phone, any landline, any mobile.
Oh wow!
From those phone booths around Australia, that's what they are. So you can still use them, but just those little things, or like so it wasn't a culture shock about France, like it wasn't about the language or the croissants, or not so much about that. The big shock for me was the change from coming from sort of new Europe to old Europe.
Oh wow!
But then of course like the language, but everybody, that's nothing new there.
I'm quite surprised actually. I thought it'd be the Australian in you would be culture shock, but the fact you come from Sweden, which is not that far
it's totally different though. But I was in Sweden for 4 or 5 years, so I had sort of assimilated there.
Yeah. And
then to come here again was like to change everything again. So and it's different too, because if you had to come from just Australia or Canada or England or whatever to Paris, it's a different kind of jump. Like it's a mega jump from home to a new place. Whereas I'd already sort of got used to this idea of being in a foreign country with a foreign language and foreign system and different way to banking, just everything. So I was already kind of prepared for a jump into a new country like France.
Okay.
It was cool. It was like I was prepared for it, and you need to be prepared for it because it's very different to live here than to visit here for a week.
I think if you're straight in from somewhere completely different, it must be tough anywhere really. To get an absolute culture shock and join here, it must be quite tough actually.
And there's huge differences for people who live here, or like for me, I got a business here now. I still have culture shocks about how things work here, like with accounting or that kind of stuff. So and that's also like hugely different from the tourists who come here and go to the Louvre, go to the Eiffel Tower. They don't even see any kind of culture shocks when they come here, but so it is.
Okay. And we're going to just dip into Paris itself, but first of all, very quickly, you mentioned Stockholm, any other travels between Australia and Stockholm and here?
Travels as in like holidays? I've been I've travelled an awful lot.
Oh yeah,
I love to travel.
Any highlights maybe?
Fairly recently I was in Italy. I love Italy.
Last week I was there.
Oh nice.
Dream.
Where'd you go?
We went to San Marino, not Italy obviously, Rimini, Genoa, Rome, and Venice.
Nice. So I was in Rome as well, but then I went a little bit all over the place. We rented a car and we drove to a really small town out on the east side. And then we left my young son with his grandparents.
Okay.
And then me and my wife drove over to Siena for a wedding. And we explored around there a little bit. So Tuscany, it was incredible, It was really, really nice. And then back to Rome again. So I love that. I was in Australia recently, but traveling, we rented a car in Brisbane. So for those who don't know Australia, like Australia's a big old country. We're at the top right, and we drove all the way to the sort of bottom right, which is a mega journey.
That's huge.
It took weeks, So there's 2 good trips I did in the last year that were great. But I love travel. I traveled an awful lot. Especially especially when I was in my 20s.
Yes.
Those were the days.
The free responsibility.
Zero responsibility, and also zero budget, so it was a bit different.
Yes, of course.
But I look back on those days very fondly.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to recreate that now on my trip.
Okay, good.
Early 30s now. And stuff going on.
But you don't have kids or anything?
No.
Okay, well enjoy the free.
We'll slightly touch on that later with your podcast, because I know you and your wife do co-host it occasionally. First, Paris. So your podcast is all about Paris.
Yep.
Very successful. Again, we'll come to that in a bit. I'm going to ask some basic quick-fire questions about Paris, about your opinions. So, 3 districts in central Paris. You mentioned 20, I think, before, that maybe people should visit, and what does each one of those offer that's a bit different to the others?
So the ones that are off the beaten track, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. It's tough because part of me is like you got to visit all the main ones.
Yeah.
And the main ones, once again, for people who don't know, it goes 1 to 20 in a sort of clockwise snail shell kind of formation, right? So from 1 to 7, that's all central and touristy.
Yeah.
Anything after 7 is getting a little bit out of there. So I'd recommend people should try 18th for sure, which is more marked, but there's more to it as well. Like it's sort of descending into the south part of it, which is nearing into the 9th and Pigalle.
Okay.
So if anyone's under 40, definitely go there. Go out at night, have some fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what your typical listener's age is, but
Millennial.
Okay, then definitely. Then 9th and 10th. The 10th is kind of the cool hipster part. There's the Canal Saint-Martin. Going into the 11th, I'd say for your listeners then 9th, 10th, 11th.
Okay.
They're the kind of cool, just outside of central Paris, cheaper, more likely to find loads of bars.
Yeah.
So if you compare the 7th, where I live right now, Eiffel Tower and so on, dead boring to live. Like, you can't find bars, there's no happy hours really or anything like that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you compare that to the 11th, it's only bars with happy hours. It's like a totally different vibe, and I think it's worth putting a bit of sort of research into where you stay if you come into Paris, so that you know it's nice to be near the Eiffel Tower, but if you're 27 years old and you want to go out, you're not going to enjoy it very much. Plus it's like super expensive.
So even the coffee price is double in price when you go from, I think we're staying in 11th, did I say that? I think in Bercy area, which is really nice, but coming here it's like double the price of coffee.
Oh sure, well if you were to go to the Eiffel Tower area, you'd double again almost. It's crazy. It's
I don't get away with it.
Well, I mean, I guess there's so many. Well, the people that live there often are extraordinarily wealthy, right? But also, like a lot of the tourists are tired and confused and don't care, and they want to sit and have a Coca-Cola because they've just been walking all day, and they don't care if a Coca-Cola is €8. They just want one, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
So they play, and I can't even imagine what the rent costs for a cafe near the Eiffel Tower. I don't even want to imagine.
Do you know what I realised today? Obviously, people imagine Paris right now, tall buildings. I guess there's apartments and apartments or flats. If you're at the top and you've got a sofa to move in, you have to get the guys with the ladder, don't you? And they move it all up there.
Yeah, it's like a crane sort of.
Crane service,
I love that thing.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's no, often they don't have elevators either.
Oh, okay, right.
So a lot of people rent one of those things for the whole move, not even for the whole, for a sofa, just for everything. They put it on those raised, it's like a sort of flatbed crane. Yeah. And there's a guy at the top that carries it all.
Yeah.
Pretty dangerous as well. There's no safety ratings.
It's interesting.
Old Europe.
It's the dream, really. It's so nice to come from, you obviously would understand this, from Canada. It's all new, isn't it? It's nice to come back sometimes, back to where I'm from, and it's like, there's some old stuff here.
Yeah, right.
Just kind of go back to your roots a little bit.
Yeah. You should walk about 100 meters from where we're sitting is an ancient house, like one of the oldest houses in Paris, half timbered, beautiful. I don't know what year it is, but it must be, I don't know, at least 400 years old. You should check it out.
Wow, okay. That kind of leads me nicely onto the next question.
I did the segue for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. On your Instagram, I see that you just do like top things to do, just like ticking things off, maybe more touristy things. So I know people know the Eiffel Tower, Arc de Triomphe. Just a quick fire, 10 tourist spots that people should definitely visit. Like you can include Eiffel Tower.
For the first timer?
Yeah, first timer. Yeah.
Okay, then you tick off the main museums, so like the Louvre, the Musée d'Orsay. You could even go to the Rodin Museum, which maybe it could come in 11th, like it's not super famous. But then, as you said, Arc de Triomphe, Eiffel Tower. I'd put in walk along the Seine, or get a boat and ride along it, for sure. I'd add like a brilliant restaurant, especially like for me, I like food, but I'm not a foodie. And I just as much like a restaurant that's got a lot going for it in the interior.
Yeah.
There's one called, in English, you'd say the Blue Train, the Train Bleu. Okay. It's astonishingly beautiful. You should go check it out.
Yeah,
it's not far from where you stay.
Okay. What's it called again?
Imagine the blue train, but say in French. It's Train Bleu.
My French is
It's in the Gare de Lyon, which is the train station.
It's right near.
Yeah, and so it's like gilded interiors and just going for coffee. Like if you're on a budget, you just go get an espresso and be polite to them, because they obviously would prefer that you're not just having an espresso, but it's like Versailles and it's amazing. Yeah. And then I'd say, go out along the Canal Saint-Martin for something a bit different, which is a big canal that runs through the sort of 12th, 11th, 10th, 19th districts, and just hang out around there. That's got to be 10 things.
Yeah. I weren't counting, but it seems like 10.
So what I did on Instagram is I realized that I was getting very sort of offbeat with the things that because I've been here for 8 years now, and I'm always seeking out cool, interesting things. The full story is I was getting obsessed with this ancient archway that's 2 floors down under a post office that used to let this river run into Paris through the old wall 800 years ago. And as I was like talking about on the show, I had this revelation that a lot of the listeners actually are brand new to Paris, right? And they're like, I just want to go to the Eiffel Tower. And I feared that I was maybe being a bit too offbeat for some people. So this year I just brought it back and did a few really basic lists.
Yeah, I saw them. Yeah.
So 10 things to do on your first trip, second trip, third trip. And they went ballistically. They went like viral, like 100,000 hits on the reels on Facebook and stuff like that on each of them. And I was like, okay, there's definitely an appetite for this stuff as well. And as much as I love to go underground and find really weird stuff, I realized I had to be careful not to be too weird. Otherwise, it's a business as well.
Yes.
And I know that the core listeners to my show will be like, oh my God, he did it. He got down to like Indiana Jones, he did it. But there's a balance. I can't just be doing things that I desperately find, fulfilling, and that I know the core listeners. I have to,
But you have got listeners who are interested in that. It's an interesting one. It's like I do long form.
Yeah.
Normally these podcast interviews like an hour, 2 hours long. I know there's a short form, Marcus. I have to do for me. I have to do a short form one on a Friday.
Sure.
Just get both markets. So maybe you can do like a little niche 10-minute off the beaten track one thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the thing is, I think it's just being. If you want to make it depends. If you're a millionaire, you can make whatever podcast you want. But if you're trying to build a brand, you need to please people as well.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I'm not just going to do 10 ways to climb the Eiffel Tower, 10 ways to visit the Louvre Museum, because then I would lose interest in it myself. But I find it quite interesting. There's a balance that you have to find in making a show to make it successful.
Okay, that's great. Kind of again leads me on nicely to the next
question.
Like
I do this for a living.
Have you got my notes?
No, I specifically asked not to.
True. My next question was a personal favourite, so a lesser known, or just a personal recommendation, just one thing that you love seeing in Paris that maybe people are not sure about or don't even know about. Could be a site, could be a restaurant, could be anything.
I think a fun one that I like to tell people is there's on the doorways of Paris, these big old doors, huge, they used to be big enough to let the horse and carriage through in the old days, 400 years ago, whatever. On these big doors of Paris, if you look carefully, and you'll see them, James, now that I've mentioned it too, they have these curious little ornaments on the bottom left and bottom right. They're called chasse-roues in French, and they can be shaped like anything like a sphere or a block of iron or a stone cylinder or whatever to ornate kind of dragons of gold and so on. And these things were built to prevent the wagon's wheels from damaging the buildings they went in, right? Kind of a weird backstory, but what I like about it is, super niche, but what I like about it is these are everywhere in Paris. They're right under your nose. 99% of people don't know what they're for and probably ignore them. But once you see them, it's free to do too. Once you see them, you'll see them as you leave here now because they're all around here. You'll get a new appreciation for this weird kind of architectural detail. Now you know what it is, and you'll go, oh, this kind of gives me a glimpse into what Paris used to be like, because the more ornate or intricate these things are, the more you know that inside that courtyard there are wealthy people, so there's maybe some cool secrets behind that door. And so I'd recommend it, and when I do walking tours for people, I often tell people, look out for them, find them, and then people message me afterwards like, it's like a treasure hunt. I couldn't stop looking for them in the city. So I'd tell people, if you want to do something a bit cooler in Paris, keep your eye on those things and tell the person you're walking along with what they are, and they'll be astonished by your amazing knowledge of this city.
Is there like an app for that? I can imagine someone create an app where you can tick them off. Like a little map around Paris.
It's cool because some of them are so weird. Like there's like lion head ones, and then there's some that are just super boring. Like we're sitting in front of right now some sort of these yellow iron things. Like there's some that look just like that. Like not you wouldn't write home about it, but they're cool too because it tells a story. It shows you what the maybe poorer people had out the front of their house, and then you go next door and there's something incredible. I wish we could see some from where we're sitting, but they're all small doors. Just share a picture of it on your social media so people know what you're
I'll get it from you so they can kind of visualise.
No, you'll be taking pictures when you leave.
Oh, me.
You'll see them all the time. You're going to be addicted to them, you'll see. You'll be messaging me about it in a couple of days, I reckon.
Wish I stayed longer. Unfortunately, I leave tomorrow. But anyway, we're in a coffee shop called Le Peloton. Is there, just like speak too loud here, is there another favourite cafe you like going to coffee?
Yeah, there's lots of, There's one called Coutume, C-O-U. No, I don't really go for the traditional French ones because they don't serve good coffee. It's like, I just don't like it. You know, in Australia we take coffee fairly seriously, and this kind of new wave of coffee shop like this one we're in, there's a lot of them opening up, and I really like them. And so there's one on the left bank called Coutume. It's the word custom in French, C-O-U-T-U-M-E. And they kind of really started this. In fact, look at the beans up here on the wall. That's Coutume. You see under those 3 dots?
Yes.
So that's like a brand now that's really taken over, but they do it excellently well. That's another good one. Man, I've written the whole list of them. I found the best one in every district. So, but those two, this one on the right bank and that one on the left bank.
Brilliant. Okay. And what about the best time of year to visit?
I don't know. I think probably summer. I think in August is everything closes in August, which I really like. Like everything, like bakeries and cafes and restaurants. A lot of things just gone. And some tourists who've saved up all year and want to come here for something specific might be disappointed by that. Mm-hmm. They want to try something that happens to be closed. That sucks. But I like it because the city's way empty. All the Parisians go on holiday. So I'd recommend it. I recommend coming in August, but I think for the most pleasing for everybody is probably May, June, just before it gets too hot.
Cool.
Okay. I'm in Australia. I don't think it gets too hot.
Exactly.
Really, but in terms of trying to answer for everybody, come just before it gets too hot, or September just before it gets too cold.
Okay. And what about budget? I guess that's what you make of it. You can be budget. You can be expensive.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to answer, really. But
it's impossible to answer, but if we're talking to a millennial crowd, let's say, I like to think you can. I know because I moved here. I was really broke when I first got here. I put the 2-month bond on the apartment. I was properly broke, right? I had an income, but I didn't have spending money on anything. Yeah. And it's easy. Like you can do it. You can get a baguette for €1.
Yeah.
Like that can be your dinner if you're really struggling, And so there's a lot of things you can do here that are free, like so many things. Like even just walking around, it's like the national sport is walking around in Paris. Sport, but you know what I mean. Like you don't need to be paying, like I said for that Crème Bleu restaurant, you don't need to go in there and have a 3-course meal for €80 when you can go in and have an espresso there it'll be expensive, but it's €4 for an awesome experience, So for budget, I honestly, if you're on holiday here, the biggest expense is going to be where you stay. And then after that, just be smart. If you're really struggling, don't go out for the cocktails. Just walk more. There's a lot to get out of the city. And if you're fortunate enough to be on a mega budget, there's definitely things for you here as well. There's a lot of luxury in this city too. I don't touch most of it, but like you go to the Champs-Élysées, you can go shopping. There's all these like the flagship stores of Louis Vuitton and Dior and all that stuff. I don't go in there, but it's there. There's something for everybody there. But I think it's probably a exaggeration to say this is too expensive, especially compared to like the Nordics. You go to Oslo or Stockholm or even Copenhagen.
So expensive, isn't it?
Like it's disgusting. Here you can get a glass of wine on this street in central Paris. There's bars and restaurants. You can get a glass of wine for €4 or €5, probably anywhere. In Stockholm, I don't think that's even possible. I don't think it's even possible to get one for under €10. Honestly, I remember it's a different currency there, but it's the equivalent of like €13 for a cheap glass of wine in a restaurant in Stockholm. Isn't that sick?
Yeah. I don't even know how that's possible.
Well, they just earn a lot more. If you're earning there, it's okay, but if you're visiting, it's tricky. It's a tricky city. It's a beautiful city, though.
It is known for that, though, isn't it? Nordic countries being really expensive.
And ABBA.
Of course, I'm a fan.
You're a fan? Yeah, I love ABBA.
Yeah. I'm not ashamed to say that.
No, I love ABBA. They're great. I've been to their museum. They got a museum there now. Have you been to Stockholm?
I've not.
Oh, you must.
No, yeah. I've done the cheat where you go to Copenhagen and go across the bridge to Malmö.
Malmö, yeah.
Been to Sweden.
That counts.
Yeah, it's ticking off.
There's a lot more to Sweden than Malmö, though, I must say. Yeah. But Copenhagen's very lovely too.
Oh, beautiful city. Yeah. Love the vibe.
Yeah.
I also love the vibe here, Paris.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of London, so I find people might say same, but I totally think Paris has got its own vibe. It's a bit more
compared to London.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think London's too big. Like this, you can really walk. Like, you could walk. So we're central now, and you're staying in the 11th. You could walk there maybe in half an hour.
Just along the river.
Yeah, and in London it feels like you can't really walk like anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just too big. I was there fairly recently. I had something on the other side of town. Same in Sydney. I was in Sydney recently. And I was with some people, they're like, oh, it's on the other side of town, we're not going to go. I'm like, oh, wow, that would never happen here. Like, rarely.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Maybe it's just the way it's kind of been planned out. Because Paris, you do feel like all the districts are just essential, right? It is
Sure.
easier to navigate, maybe.
Or maybe it's just a matter of where they've drawn the ring around what counts as London and what counts as Paris.
Yeah, true.
Because obviously there's loads of suburbs outside of Paris that still counts as it, and London's maybe just bigger. I don't know. I'm not a town planner.
Same as me.
I'm just a podcaster.
Yeah, I'm trying to be. Okay, just finish on sort of Paris and France. Just on France, any other sort of cities or towns, just very quickly, that you liked visiting or would
Sure.
recommend?
So when it was for my honeymoon,
Oh yeah.
I drove around the whole country on a scooter, like a little, like a Vespa. So I've been all over the country, like literally all over. And
Vespa's trendy. Very trendy, Vespa.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's bad because it wasn't actually a Vespa, but it was the kind of, I'm not trendy, but there's lots of towns that we discovered to be really cool. So like, there's a town called Annecy down near the Alps. Like sort of almost Swiss-like, beautiful lake, stunning, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then if you're into history, there's a city or a town called Carcassonne that I loved. Really ancient history, castles, ramparts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, there's so much going on.
There is. It's the most visited country in the world, isn't it? France, officially.
I think Paris is definitely the most visited city, so probably via that. But also, I understand that's also because so many like British people come through France to go to Spain or Portugal or Belgium or whatever. So that fact is like it's a bit of a dodgy fact.
Yeah.
Because it's also by chance,
Yeah,
it's a stopover country. But I mean, if you're younger, I'd totally recommend southwestern France, where there's lots of student cities.
Yeah.
Very cheap, like Toulouse and near Bordeaux and that kind of stuff. That's cool. That's a cool place to be hanging out. So I'd recommend that to anybody.
I think if you're from UK, where I'm from, I think of France, of course Paris there, but south of France.
Of course, I didn't even mention. The whole Riviera is one of my favorite places in the world. I love it down there. Didn't even think to recommend it. Maybe I'm trying to keep it a secret. It's probably too late though, right? No, but there's loads of little towns along there. Not just Nice, not just Marseille, but everything in between. The small towns are really, really great. There's some little pearls down there. So like Antibes, Antibes, Antibes. That's like just that little place. Many people haven't heard of it, but
Never heard of it.
It's pristine. I love it down there.
Okay. Yeah, so we got the train from Genoa to Monaco. And that, I know it's Monaco, I get it, but like those little towns, high-rise towns by the Riviera.
Doesn't Monaco count as a country? You can tick that off as an extra country.
That's what we done it,
Yeah, is that what you did? Same with San Marino?
We done the Micronations tour, so Monaco, San Marino, Vatican City, all done in a week.
What about Liechtenstein?
That's in a few weeks. For me personally, not for my friends.
Thanks.
So we're going to delve into your podcast.
Sure.
Again, a nice little leeway. The Earful Tower podcast, love the pun.
Thank you.
I think, judging from my research, very well known. Got some stats for you. You've got this on the website. 70,000 followers across, I guess, multiple platforms. Over 2 million downloads.
Yeah.
8K on your newsletter. And you've done this since 2017.
Yeah, I think so.
So that is done all right, isn't it?
Where'd you get all those stats from? Is that on my website?
I've done a bit of research.
No, I think that all sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It's fairly. I'm surprised. It's weird with the podcast because you put an episode out and it's not like a YouTube video where there's 1,000 comments underneath and people. YouTube viewers are used to commenting on things, for example, and you can see that there's a lot of interaction. Whereas with a podcast episode, there's not even anywhere really to comment. There's social media, but it's not like you listen to an episode and then go, oh, I better go on Instagram to leave my thoughts.
Yeah.
So it can sort of feel like an almost, I don't know if lonely isn't the word, but it's like you put things out into the people listen to on their walks or in their car or whatever, and then you often don't hear anything back.
Yes.
So it's weird. I know I have a big community, but it's an invisible community.
Yes, exactly. I know
it's
exactly
kind of unusual, but like you say, it's a well-known. Like it's a bunch of Americans sent me that there's a TV show. I don't even know the name of it, but it's very similar to Jeopardy in America.
Yeah.
No idea what it's called. I think it was like what Jeopardy became or something. And one of the questions was popular travel podcast. A popular travel podcast about Paris is called The Earful What? And the guy got it. The guy got it right. I might maybe got the words a little bit. But the next day I woke up and there were all these messages from Americans like, oh my god, you made it. You're the answer on a Jeopardy style TV show in America. So it's I don't know, super surprising to me, but it's I guess it's out there now. People know about it.
It's the invisible audience.
The invisible audience, yeah.
Unless you're a YouTuber and you got it on YouTube, but you're right. I know they're millennials because I just see the stats and I look on Spotify live podcasters and all this, but
Sure.
again, if you're listening right now, I have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening. But can you tell listeners what your podcast obviously is about Paris, but maybe just a few lines about?
Sure. Well, it's what I like to do is I find people that make this city, the city of light. Find the people that make the city of light shine. So it might be anyone from like a mayor or an actor or a sports star or a coffee owner or a street sweeper. I'm just making all these up, but anyone that might have an interesting story or an interesting angle in the city, I like to interview them about the city and their job, but mostly about the city. But then also mixed in with interviews is like experiences. I might do things like I might go to a fantastic restaurant or a chateau and then talk about it. Sometimes, like you said, my wife is like a co-host with me because it's easier than just me talking for half an hour to have someone to sort of roll with the punches. And then sometimes I just go by myself and tell my own story. It's also like this sort of ongoing journey of my time in Paris, and I've written books and stuff like that. So it changes. I don't think it's ever dull, but it's also a part of that is that it's not the same thing every single week. It's not just always an interview for 30 minutes with an author or something like that. I'm always changing it up. And now I didn't even know how many, 400 episodes or something like that.
300 or so. Just over 300?
300, yeah. So after a while, those things don't even become, same with the download figures, it doesn't become, it sort of doesn't, unless you're really chasing some kind of sponsor for some kind of reason, it doesn't. It's more like for me anyways, I want the show to be as good as it can be and make sure that I'm proud of it, and it doesn't really make a difference if a few more people do or don't listen. It's more about the overall picture. So.
Yeah, you're right, because I think at the start you might get into the stats.
Everybody does.
Yeah, you want to know where you are.
I used to always look at. I could tell you to the nearest, I don't know, 5 or something in the early days, because there were probably only 5 people listening, right? But then once it grows, you realize it's a dangerous thing to be just for years chasing. That you get more, especially it doesn't make any difference.
No.
Like listeners doesn't necessarily pay rent or anything like that.
No,
so what does it matter? Like it's just put out a good show. That's way more important. A lot of new podcasts that focus on stats and stuff. It's not important. Just do the best you can do.
And that's why they stopped. I don't know if you know much about podcast stats in general, but I think active over 3 million in the world right now. But
3 million active podcasts.
Active. That means they could have posted 2 months ago, but actual active in terms of week to week or bi-week.
Do you mean listeners or podcasts?
Podcasts. So 3 million. And the 10% of those, what you call really like active, where they're weekly or bi-weekly.
Well, there's a stat I read about something. It's like it's a crazy percentage of new podcasts of podcasts in general don't go beyond 9 episodes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Like most people give up before that, and I get it. Especially if you're chasing stats, a lot of people think that they're just gonna make it because they're quite an entertaining person, and it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work out. I mean, your friends were listening for the first few months.
When I started mine, I didn't even tell my friends.
Oh, did you not?
No, I didn't invite any of them to the Facebook page or anything when I started. I was just like, because otherwise I feared that after 6 months it would just be the same 30 people there, and then what? Exactly. So I didn't tell anyone. I think I still have friends in Australia who don't know what I do. I know because one of them, there was a big write-up about the podcast in the National Australian newspaper and radio, and I had some of my closest friends from before when I lived there were like, I didn't know that's what you were doing. I was like, wow, that really went under the radar with it. But also, I'm not making it for them. I'm not making it for my friends. I don't expect them to listen. No?
My friend said to me, he's an editor. He said, you're not doing this podcast for 15 friends. Okay, fair enough. That's the point. Like you make it for other people. My point was that at the start they'll listen, family and friends, but then they'll just tail you off, and you need the generic people.
Sure, I want Paris fans to listen to my show. I don't want my old high school friends to listen unless they care about Paris. Well, there's no point for them. Like save them the time.
Fair enough. And do you speak French and English on your podcast, or just English?
Just English.
Ever attempted to do a French speaking one?
I think I did. I did one that was like had a 10 or 15 minute French bit in it, but it was more because the guest was a French teacher, and it was to demonstrate how to teach French or something like that.
Okay.
She interviewed me even in French. I can't remember, but no. My whole thing is like making France and Paris accessible to people, and so if I were to do things in French, it would make it inaccessible to the majority of the audience, and that would be shooting myself not in my foot, but probably like in my kneecap.
Kneecap, maybe. Any higher up?
I don't even know.
Okay, and how long is an episode length, and how often do you post?
Every week. On average, over the past 5 years, it's probably every single week. I bet it works out because for a period I did when I used to care about the stats. I did 2 a week because it raised the statistics. And then I was like, well, this is silly. I could just do 1 every day, and then it's not really.
It's all relative.
Yeah. So and then sometimes I take a bit of time off, like when my son was born or whatever, and I just go like, I'm taking a month off. It's the end of the season.
Yeah.
And so 1 a week, and the episode, I would say it's meant to be 30 minutes, but on average it's probably 40. Because there's some longer ones I sometimes do. Like when Notre Dame burned, I did a really sort of in-depth, sort of meaningful interview with someone who was there that it meant a lot to, and that went for like an hour. So sometimes it's a bit longer, but typically it's about 30 minutes.
Okay, and where can people find you, social media and website?
Everywhere. If they just search for the Earful Tower, it should be everywhere. I'd be surprised if someone couldn't find it.
We're talking before, and I just put Paris podcast in Google.
Yeah.
You're the first one that came up.
You know what I did? I looked up, because there's charts.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you got a travel podcast, so you can see if you're in the charts for different countries and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think about how to say what my show is, but it's peaked at number 1 for travel podcast.
In general?
Well, they do it by country, right?
Yes.
So I was looking at which countries it's peaked at 1, because it can tell you. It can tell you the top that my show's ever been in Greece is whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it was super interesting because there were lots of countries where it had been number 1, like America, but then or Australia or Canada or whatever. But then in some countries like Japan, I know that they don't, they might be listening to Japanese ones. Okay, but in Ireland, for example, it was way lower, and I was like, I wonder what it is. Is it about some countries just love Paris? Is it about, I don't know.
Algorithm?
I don't know. I found it really interesting, but I was glad to have had number 1 in America.
That's a huge achievement.
And I was trying to figure out, I was like, how can you even say what that is? Like, what's the fact? Is it like when a singer has had a number 1 single? Because I'm definitely not the number 1 travel podcast in America right now. I doubt it. So I was once number 1. What does that even mean? I don't even know what it means.
Well,
is it like I've had a hit single once? Is that what it means?
It's about the income every year.
Is it chart topping? Is that what you could say? I don't know.
You could say, you said award-winning. That's award-winning, right?
Yeah,
You've won awards. So that's probably more.
Yeah, it also
forget number 1.
Yeah.
If someone's giving you an award, that's award-winning in the title. Done.
Yeah. Although, what happens if you've won an award that's a lame award? That's not as good as being number 1 in America.
No, maybe not.
Nothing means anything. Everything's a lie. I think just honestly, what I said before is it's not about, as fun as it can be to see charts or to get nice reviews or whatever. Like the most important thing I think is to put out a show that I believe in, and same for you. You put out something that you like, that you think, that you want people to listen to, and that they enjoy it is a great bonus.
Exactly. That's absolutely key. I can't stress that enough, and that's why it's just important to get the content correct. Like, don't care about the stats. Like, do you know Simon Sinek, the English? He's English speaker, and he's like a talk around the world about all sorts of things. But he was on the podcast in the UK called The Diary CEO, one of the top
I know
podcasts.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
And the guy said, so this is like a top charting podcast in the UK. And he went, well, for now.
Yeah.
He said, but you don't do it for that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to go eventually. Someone else is going to come along. So you have to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. Percentage of podcasts that make it, as in financially, is nothing. And so if one is lucky enough to get to that, then it's just like enjoy the ride, because it's a tough. I don't know. We're not here to talk about podcasts.
No, we're not. No.
But it's it's always nice to talk to another podcaster about.
Yeah. I guess we understand.
Behind the
struggles and the wins. Yeah. Okay.
Frightfully uninteresting for all the people who came here for Paris tips.
Yeah. Okay. Slightly more interesting. We're going to finish the episode on quickfire travel questions.
Yes.
This is my feature where some of your favourite things that you've seen worldwide or Paris. Sure. I kind of make them up as I go.
I love it. Go for it.
Hey, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5, or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for travelling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you. It's travel question time.
The first question is maybe top 3 favourite countries that you travel to.
Let's say Italy.
Yeah.
I have to say France, though, don't I?
Yeah.
And Tanzania.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's on my list.
Caught you. Caught you by surprise.
That piqued my interest, that, yeah.
Have you been?
No, I've not.
There's a lot to see there.
Yeah. Okay. What about 3 countries that you've not travelled to that's next on your list?
Japan.
Yeah.
Canada.
Okay.
Expensive, these 2 trips already. I don't know. I should have done a micro. Yeah. And maybe Argentina.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's a big trip. I can't do that in one go.
Argentina is a trip in itself.
Yeah, but so is Canada and Japan.
Yep, and Japan. Yeah.
That's all right. This is dreaming, right? I'm allowed to dream.
Yeah, of course. Okay. What about 3 favourite cuisines that you've experienced?
I said I'm not a foodie. I did say that. I did say I'm not a foodie.
Yeah, that's fine.
I said like Japanese, Italian, French.
That's fine by me. Yeah. What about if you could pick one city in the world that's not Paris?
Yeah.
Where you can sit and have a coffee and watch the world go by.
Yeah.
Where else would you sit?
Something that I'm familiar with, or something that I want to go to.
Oh, let's do one of each. Yeah. I normally ask for where you've been, but let's say where you imagine as well, so one of each.
Well, I really like the Australian coffee scene is really good.
Yeah.
I think Melbourne is the best, but I like Sydney visually is really, like, you can find it really beautiful. Like, you've got cafes in some amazing places.
Yeah.
Like, just amazing places. Like, visually, nature, incredible. So that would be a nice one, and the coffee would be good.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to go, I'm not going to say Italy again. I keep saying Italy, that's a bit, come on, I can do better than that. But
it's the classic answer.
it was meant to be, no, but it was meant to be somewhere I haven't been, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I want to go to some weird city, like popular city in America I've never been to, like Chicago or something. I'd love to go over there and just see what day-to-day life is like. I don't know why Chicago.
Interesting.
I've been to like New York and LA and stuff. Just some big old city there and see what a weird answer. I never would have guessed that.
I don't think I've ever had Chicago as an answer.
Good.
Yeah,
that's
so
what I
unique.
want to be. I want to see what it's like. Let me see
Yeah.
what it's like. Yeah.
Okay. And what about a favourite walk or hike that you've done?
Oh, I got a good one for you. There's the Abel Tasman National Walk or whatever in New Zealand.
Yeah.
The north side of the South Island. That was incredible.
Yeah.
That was really good. I look back on that sometimes and I'm like, wow, that was really like, beautiful through the trees, along the beaches, camping, a couple of days. Yeah. Timing it for the tides so that you can cross different bits here and there. Glowworms at night. Oh. Have you done that exact walk?
Used to live in New Zealand, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Where did you
What
live?
place? Wellington.
Nice. So not far away at all from that.
So you can do like multiple days or one day, right? So did you do like, you park the car up, get there?
We had friends that lived there,
okay, fair enough.
and they dropped us at one end, and then we walked for, it must have been 3 or 4 days or something,
Yeah.
I think. It was a while ago now, but I just remember, I can still picture it really clearly. And then another really good hike, I went in Cortina in Italy,
Okay.
and I did like proper Via Ferrata, like hooking on and going up on the mountains.
Hardcore.
It wasn't that hardcore. It sounds hardcore maybe, but it was really nice as well. And just the mountain was beautiful. There you go. There's 2 good ones. I got another one for you.
Yeah, please fire away. Yeah.
I climbed up this mountain called Kebnekaise, which is the tallest mountain in Sweden. I did in the summer, and so there's still snow at the top in summer, but it's just an incredible. It was like maybe 2 or 3 days of walking. Like you walk to sort of the base of it, and the next day you all the way up, and then come back down again. They say that from the top of it, because it's so high and Sweden's quite flat, you can see 10% of Sweden from the top.
Wow.
How about that? So there's 3 really different walks for you.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I need to research that.
Do it, yeah. You need to do it. You need to do it.
Yeah, do it as well. Yeah. On a list.
Yeah.
Quick fire here. How many countries have you travelled to?
I don't know.
Rough guess.
Like 35?
Yeah, decent.
Yeah. 35-ish, I don't know, yeah.
And I normally finish podcasts with this question. A few lines to the listeners of why someone should go and travel, and maybe specifically why they should visit Paris.
Firstly, broaden your mind. You've got to broaden your mind. You've got to jump in the deep end. You've got to go to a foreign country where you realize for the first time that you're stupid because you can't communicate. You're like a child again, you know? Like you go back to zero. And I think it's really good for you. I think a lot of people who haven't traveled, like I meet a lot of people who come to Paris from different countries and they haven't traveled much, they don't realize that you can't just go into a cafe and speak loudly at a French person and get what you want. Like you've got to, it's humbling and it's important. And if you've traveled a lot, then you know that you're way more aware of it, that you are, like the world doesn't, it's an ego thing, you know, the world doesn't revolve around you. So I think for that, broadening your mind, but also understanding yourself a bit more, I think it's really good. Paris is an unbelievably beautiful place, just steeped in history, both recent, amazing history, like 100 years ago, but Like, just down there, Julius Caesar came here 2,000 years ago, looking around. This is where he was like, yeah, this will do. You know, that's incredible. That's just there. Like, that island, 3 minutes walk away.
Yeah.
So you can find, even if you're not into history, that's got to impress you, you know? Yeah. So you get this huge mix of all that mixed in with, like, these cool new restaurants, coffee shops, cultures, language, music, art. Yeah, there's so much going on here. I don't know. I don't think I need to say more than that to encourage somebody to come here. And also the people are, like, on a serious note, the people are, I think French people, especially Parisians, can have a bad rap for being impolite and so on. I think it's totally incorrect. I said this a lot before. I think what it often is people who aren't doing what I just said. So take a step back, come here, realize you as a tourist, you don't know how to talk to the people. Like, you're probably in the wrong. Like, you're probably breaking the social norms or the accepted etiquette or whatever. So come here, be ready, say bonjour, be friendly, say merci and so on. You know, make an effort, and doors will open for you, and you'll have a good time. I'm sure of it.
Awesome. Just to finish very quickly, I felt so humbled here because my French is shocking. And normally you can get away with speaking a little bit of language / English, but here I just feel like I'm a child. I can't speak to people in French, and I feel really bad. And I can say like bonjour, merci, ça va, and all that sort of stuff. But
it's great that you make that effort though, because I think a lot of people who feel exactly what you feel, I've seen it many times. They come here and they're like, oh, I don't speak it, so I'll just speak English because I don't even want to say bonjour. And that can be considered as really rude as well. Like, if you think about it, if a French person came to wherever, in England, let's say, and walked in and they just like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I'll just speak French. I saw that happen in London once. Someone speaking French, I think, or it doesn't matter, they're speaking foreign language to a guy at the train station trying to buy a ticket. And the dude at the ticket thing was looking around at everyone like, who is this idiot speaking to me in French? And I was like, whoa, like seeing it from that perspective, it's so different, you know? Like, because even though you don't speak French, I bet you're still getting by somewhat in English, you know? But it wouldn't happen the reverse in
going to England or
Norwich in England, right?
Going to Norwich speaking French.
Exactly.
Like, what's
you'd
this
be
language?
ridiculed, right? So you know, it's nice to the perspective, and that's what traveling is all about. To sum it up, perspective. Shift your perspective. Realize the world is a lot bigger than you think it is. And appreciate it.
Brilliant. That's a great way to finish the episode. So Oliver, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
having
me.
Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
I'll put all the links in the show notes so people can access your podcast, your website, etc. And thanks for meeting me in person, having a coffee and talking Paris.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I enjoyed myself a lot.
Cheers, dude.
Thank you for listening to my Winging It Travel podcast episode today. You can find me on Instagram at James Hammond Travel or Winging It Travel Podcast. You can search for both. I release weekly clips of this podcast episode, as well as photos from the last 8 to 10 years of my travels. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook and Pinterest by searching Winging It Travel Podcast. I do release daily content to do with travel and the podcast throughout the week. Also check out my website, jameshammond.org. There's content about myself, my travels, and there's also a newsletter sign up as well as a contact form. Finally, please rate and review the podcast on Podchaser. This is my platform of choice. Alternatively, you can rate this on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. This really helps the podcast gain a bit of traction for the future in terms of guests and content. And I'm glad to see that you guys are listening out there, reviewing it and enjoying the content so far. Stay safe, stay humble, keep listening, keep traveling, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, James.